Aboard Research Station Gamma 7, a metallic voice announced, "Orbital Station computers recording. Solar Day 308. Cycle 29. Standard Protocol Observation Log. Kepler 442c. Remains classified as extreme hypersaline environment. Estimated surface salinity 96.3%. Surface temperature 78.6 degrees Celsius. Atmosphere unbreathable. Radiation levels severe. Probability of life 0. The voice paused as if giving the machines time to contemplate their own certainty. 300 cycles of continuous monitoring have detected no biological signatures. Consensus rating, triple confirmed lifeless. Dr. Zylov Vixarian gestured with a delicate six-digited hand, dismissing the automated summary with a flick that expressed both boredom and satisfaction. The Zephyrian scientist's crest rippled in the station's artificial breeze, a status display that her species had evolved over millennia of political negotiation. "Computer, highlight anomalous readings for the past 50 cycles," she said, her translator converting the complex harmonics of her native speech into the standard scientific language. "No anomalous readings detected," replied the computer. "As expected." Vexarian's satisfaction was palpable, evident in the deep blue tint spreading across her facial ridges. 3 centuries of data supporting the consensus she had helped establish. 3 centuries of vindication for the Zephyrian approach to xenobiology. Behind her, Varan scientist Dr. Thrum clicked his mandibles in contemplative agreement. His species' evolution had taken place on a world with twice Earth's gravity, resulting in a compact, powerful physique that even the most augmented human would envy. "The human delegation arrives today," Thrum noted, mandibles still clicking rhythmically. "They bring a xenobiologist, a specialist." The hesitation before the word specialist carried the weight of skepticism that transcended species barriers. "Yes," Vexarian replied, her translator unable to fully capture the subtle condescension in her tone. "A specialist in improbable environments. Another human certainty that life exists where our instruments tell us it cannot." The Delphinus member of their team, Dr. Quillick, floated into the observatory on a hovering platform. Evolved in the methane oceans of a gas giant's moon, the Delphinus resembled nothing so much as a collection of translucent sacs arranged around a central nervous system. They communicated through bioluminescent pulses, which their translator rendered into speech. "I've reviewed her credentials," Quillick flashed, the translator converting the light patterns to words. "Mara Kowalski has published work on extremophiles that contradicts several established paradigms. Her methodologies are unconventional." "Unconventional," Vexarian repeated, drawing out the word. "A polite term for flawed. Humans always believe they'll find life. Their own evolutionary history makes them biased toward positive identification. They see patterns where none exist." Thrum's mandibles stilled. "She's published results on the volcanic vents of Proxima Centauri b that were initially dismissed." "And later verified." Quillick's bioluminescence pulsed with what might have been the Delphinus equivalent of discomfort. "A statistical anomaly." Vexarian waved her hand again, this time with the distinct gesture that her species used to indicate a closed topic. "One correct hypothesis does not validate a methodology. This station has operated for 300 cycles, with consistent results. 3 different species sensor technologies all concur. Nothing lives in the salt fields of Kepler 442c. The observatory's doors hissed open, and the station's operations chief, a Varan named Zeft, entered. "The human shuttle has docked. Xenobiologist Kowalski requests permission to review our sampling protocols before tomorrow's formal introduction to the research team." Vexarian's crest flattened, a sign of irritation. "Already questioning our methods. Typical human behavior." "Perhaps just thoroughness," Quillick pulsed softly. "Grant the request," Vexarian said after a moment's consideration. Show Kowalski everything. Our methods are beyond reproach. The observatory's view screen showed the harsh landscape of Kepler 442c below, endless plains of white and yellow crystal stretching to the horizon, broken only by jagged formations where salt had accumulated into massive structures over millennia. Not a drop of liquid water, not a hint of green or any other color that might suggest life's presence. Just salt, wind, and desolation under the glare of a red dwarf star. 300 cycles, Vexarian repeated, almost to herself. Absolute sterility, not even microbial activity. As if on cue, the station's sensors registered the human shuttle's attachment to the docking bay. Mara Kowalski had arrived. Mara Kowalski felt the subtle shift in gravity as she stepped from the shuttle into Research Station Gamma 7. After 3 months in transit, the 37% increase in gravitational pull made her limbs feel leaden. She knew it would take days to fully acclimate, days she didn't plan to waste. Welcome to Research Station Gamma 7, Scientist Kowalski. The station's AI greeted her. The research team will formally receive you at 0800 hours tomorrow. Dr. Vexarian has granted your request to review our sampling protocols. Would you like to proceed to your quarters first? No, Mara replied, adjusting the collar of her standard-issue silver jumpsuit. Take me to the sample analysis lab. I'd like to see your collection methods immediately. Of course. Please follow the illuminated path. Blue lights appeared on the floor, guiding her through the station's curved corridors. Mara noticed the architectural adjustments made for the various species that called this place home. Higher ceilings in some sections for the Zephyrians, reinforced flooring for the dense Varans, and atmosphere-controlled chambers for the methane-breathing Delphinus. The sample analysis lab was empty when she arrived, its pristine surfaces gleaming under harsh white light. Wall-to-wall displays showed real-time readings from the planet's surface: temperature, radiation levels, atmospheric composition, seismic activity. Computer, display the last 50 surface samples collected, with full analysis parameters. The main screen filled with data, chemical compositions, crystalline structures, radiation signatures. Mara frowned, scrolling through the information with quick gestures. These samples were all collected via automated probe? Affirmative, the computer replied. Standard protocol dictates remotely operated collection to prevent contamination. And the probes are sterilized between collections? Affirmative. Triple decontamination protocols are observed. Mara nodded, then asked, when was the last time a researcher physically visited the surface? A pause. Records indicate the last manned expedition to Kepler, 442c's surface, occurred 78 cycles ago. Purpose: equipment maintenance and calibration. 78 cycles, Mara muttered. And no biological sampling was conducted during that expedition? Negative. Biological sampling was deemed unnecessary, given established consensus on planetary sterility. Mara sighed, running a hand through her short, dark hair. Computer, show me the suits rated for Kepler 442c surface conditions. The display changed to show a bulky environmental suit with multiple redundant systems. It resembled a small spacecraft more than a suit, with mechanical joints and a propulsion system for movement in the high-gravity environment. This is what they use, Mara asked, studying the design. Affirmative. The XENV-7 environmental system is the only station equipment rated for extended surface exposure on Kepler 442c. Mara smiled thinly. Well, that explains a few things. She tapped a command into her personal device, sending data to the station computer. These are the specs for my personal equipment. I'll need a compatibility check and docking protocols established. The computer paused, processing. Your equipment does not meet standard safety protocols for Kepler 442c's environment. My equipment exceeds your safety standards in 14 parameters and falls short in only 2. Mara countered. The deficiencies are in propulsion capacity and communications range, neither of which will be relevant to my sampling methodology. Another pause. Processing exception request. Authorization from Chief Scientist required. Then get it, Mira said firmly. And while we're waiting, show me all unfiltered sensor data from the planet's surface for the past 10 cycles. Raw feeds, not summary reports. The screen filled with scrolling information, too much for a non-human intellect to process efficiently. But Mira's eyes darted across the numbers, catching patterns, noting anomalies. There, she said, freezing the display on a particular reading. What's this electromagnetic variance at coordinates 47.891 by 23.455? Electromagnetic fluctuations within that range are attributed to solar flare activity interacting with the planet's magnetosphere. Every 14 hours? With that level of regularity? Mira zoomed in on the pattern. That's not solar activity. The alternative explanation would suggest biological or technological origin. Both have been ruled out by 300 cycles of observation. Mira smiled again, this time with genuine amusement. Computer, in the history of galactic exploration, how many times has a consensus of no possible life been overturned by subsequent discovery? The computer processed this for several seconds. 417 documented cases exist where initial classification of sterility was later reversed. And how many of those reversals occurred after human intervention in the research? Another pause. 392 cases involved human researchers. I rest my case, Mira said quietly. Now, about that authorization. The formal introduction the next morning was tense. Dr. Vexarian's crest rippled with barely contained irritation as she introduced Mira to the assembled scientific team. Colleagues, this is xenobiologist Mira Kowalski, representing Earth's scientific consortium. She will be observing our operations for the next 30 days as part of the Galactic Council's research exchange program. Mira studied the gathered scientists. 6 Zephyrians, including Vexarian, 4 Varans, 3 Delphinus floating on their platforms, and various support staff. No other humans. Thank you for the welcome, Mira said, standing perhaps too straight in the higher gravity. I've reviewed your sampling protocols and historical data. Your work has been thorough. Vexarian's crest flattened slightly at what she clearly perceived as faint praise. Our methods have been validated by 3 centuries of consistent results. Mira nodded. Consistency is certainly one measure of validity. I'm more interested in comprehensiveness. Meaning? Asked Dr. Thrum, his mandibles clicking rapidly. Meaning I've identified several data anomalies that warrant closer investigation, Mira replied, activating a holographic display from her wrist device. Particularly these electromagnetic variances occurring on a 14-hour cycle. The display showed a waveform pattern that pulsed with metronomic regularity. The assembled scientists leaned forward, studying it with varying degrees of interest and skepticism. Solar interference, Vexarian said dismissively. We've documented this phenomenon extensively. Solar events don't produce patterns with this level of regularity, Mira countered. And they certainly don't concentrate in specific geographic locations. Dr. Quillick's bioluminescence flickered rapidly, the Delphinus equivalent of raised eyebrows. You're suggesting biological origin? I'm suggesting we investigate properly, Mira replied. Which brings me to my formal request. I want to conduct a personal survey of the surface. The room fell silent. Even the ambient hum of the station's life support systems seemed to dim in the wake of her words. Vexarian recovered first. Out of the question. Our automated systems provide all necessary data. Your automated systems are calibrated to detect life as you understand it, Mira said. My specialization is in life that defies conventional detection. We've used human-designed sensors as well, Thrum pointed out, all with negative results. Sensors designed for known forms of life. Mira emphasized, what about the unknown? What about life that might use salt as we use carbon? Life that communicates through electromagnetic pulses rather than chemical signals? Pure speculation. Vexarian's crest now stood fully erect, a sign of Zephyrian agitation. We deal in scientific fact, not human intuition. Mera met the alien scientist's gaze steadily. The history of exploration is filled with facts that were overturned by investigation. I'm formally requesting a 6-hour surface excursion to collect samples using my own methodologies. Your equipment isn't rated for our protocols, Vexarian objected. My equipment was designed specifically for hypersaline environments, Mera countered. It's been field tested on 17 worlds with similar conditions. I've logged over 2,000 hours in environments classified as lethal, without incident. The assembled scientists exchanged glances, a silent communication that transcended species differences. Mera had expected resistance but sensed an opportunity in their hesitation. Surely, she pressed, if you're certain of your conclusions, my expedition can only confirm them. And if by some remote chance I discover something your sensors missed, wouldn't that be worth knowing? Dr. Quillick's bioluminescence pulsed in what Mera recognized as the Delphinus pattern for curiosity. The human raises a valid point. Scientific rigor demands we consider all methodologies. Dr. Thrum's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The risk would be entirely assumed by scientist Kowalski. Vexarian's crest slowly settled as she considered her options. Denying the request outright would appear defensive, perhaps even suggest uncertainty in their findings. Allowing it, with the near certainty of failure, would only reinforce the station's conclusions. Very well, she said finally. 1 expedition, 6 hours maximum. You will follow all safety protocols and maintain constant communication with the station. At the first sign of equipment failure, you return immediately. Mera nodded, suppressing a smile of triumph. Agreed. I'll prepare for descent tomorrow at first light. So soon? Thrum asked, mandibles clicking in surprise. Time is precious, Mera replied simply. And I have a theory to test. The descent vehicle shuddered as it entered Kepler 442c's thin, toxic atmosphere. Mera sat alone in the cockpit, monitoring the craft's systems while also checking her environmental suit's diagnostics one final time. Unlike the bulky XENV-7 suits used by the station, her salt diver was a sleek, close-fitting system that resembled a second skin more than traditional environmental gear. Developed specifically for hypersaline environments, it employed a triple-layer membrane that actively repelled salt particles while maintaining internal temperature and pressure. Descent trajectory nominal, reported the shuttle's AI. Landing zone in sight. Surface conditions unchanged. Temperature 79.2 degrees Celsius. Wind speed 47 kilometers per hour. Visibility limited by salt particulates. Maintain current approach, Mera instructed, watching as the endless white plains grew larger in the view screen. Set down within 1 kilometer of the electromagnetic anomaly, I marked. Compliance would place us outside approved landing zones, the AI cautioned. Override. Authorization Kowalski Theta 9. Override accepted. Adjusting landing trajectory. The shuttle banked slightly, heading toward a region where massive salt formations rose, like abstract sculptures from the otherwise flat terrain. As they descended, Mera could see how the wind had carved the salt into flowing shapes, creating an alien landscape of twisted spires and swooping arches. Beautiful, she murmured. Aesthetic assessment noted, the AI replied tonelessly. Preparing for landing. Surface contact in 45 seconds. Mera felt the familiar flutter of anticipation in her stomach. The sensation that had driven her to dozens of worlds deemed too hostile for life. The feeling that had led her to discover microbial ecosystems in Mercury's ice caps, fungal networks in the methane lakes of Titan, and symbiotic crystal formations in the crushing pressures of Venus's lower atmosphere. The same instinct that told her Kepler 442c held secrets the station's scientists had missed. The shuttle settled onto the salt plain with a slight crunch, its landing struts adjusting to the crystalline surface. Outside, winds whipped particles of salt against the viewports, creating a sound like sand on glass. Surface contact achieved. External environment remains hostile to all known forms of life. Suit integrity is required for survival. Begin airlock cycling, Mara instructed, rising from her seat and collecting her specialized sampling kit. And maintain open communications with Research Station Gamma 7. As the airlock cycled, a connection to the station established itself. Dr. Vexarian's voice came through with only slight distortion. Station to shuttle. We're monitoring your position. Scientist Kowalski. You've landed outside the designated safe zone. The designated zones have been thoroughly sampled by your probes, Mara replied, checking the seals on her suit one final time. I'm investigating new territory. The entire planet has been mapped and analyzed. Vexarian's tone conveyed her exasperation, even through the translator. There is no new territory. We'll see, Mara said as the airlock completed its cycle. I'm proceeding to the surface now. She stepped into the airlock, feeling the artificial gravity give way to Kepler 442c's stronger pull as the outer door opened. The brightness outside was momentarily blinding, the red dwarf's light reflecting off the salt plains with painful intensity. Her helmet automatically adjusted, dimming the glare to manageable levels. Mara took her first step onto the surface, feeling the crunch of salt crystals beneath her boots. The suit immediately registered the external temperature, hot enough to boil water, had any existed on the surface, but its cooling systems kept her comfortable. I'm on the surface, she reported, beginning sample collection. We're monitoring, came Vexarian's clipped response. Mara began her methodical work, moving away from the shuttle toward the location of the electromagnetic anomalies. Every few meters, she collected samples, not just of the surface salt as the station's probes did, but of the layers beneath, the spaces between crystals, the dust carried on the wind. Her specialized tools allowed her to analyze samples on the spot, searching not just for familiar carbon-based signatures, but for any organized structures, any patterns that might indicate self-replication or environmental adaptation. An hour into her expedition, Mara paused, studying a particularly intricate salt formation. Unlike the wind-carved sculptures elsewhere, this structure displayed a curious symmetry, layers of crystal arranged in repeating patterns that seemed almost too precise for natural formation. Shuttle, are you recording these images? She asked, directing her helmet camera at the formation. Affirmative. All data is being transmitted to both the shuttle database and Station Gamma 7. Good, I'm taking a core sample of this formation. She removed a slender device from her kit, a vibrating needle designed to extract intact columns of material without disrupting the surrounding structure. As she pressed it against the formation, the needle hummed, working its way into the crystalline mass. Interesting, she murmured as the sample emerged. The layers aren't random. There's a pattern here, almost like growth rings in a tree. Salt crystals often form in layers, came Dr. Thrum's voice, indicating the station scientists were indeed watching her progress closely. Yes, but not with this level of regularity, Mara replied, scanning the sample with her handheld analyzer, and not with these trace elements distributed so systematically. The analyzer beeped, displaying results that made Mara's pulse quicken. I'm detecting molecular structures that don't match any known salt formation process. These aren't just crystals. They're organized at a near-cellular level. Contamination from your equipment, Vexarian suggested immediately. My equipment is designed to prevent contamination, not cause it, Mara countered. And these structures are unique to this location. They don't match any Earth-based or known galactic biochemistry. She continued her analysis, moving deeper into the field of formations. The further she went, the more complex the structures became, no longer simple spires, but interconnected networks of crystal that spread across the landscape like a frozen coral reef. 3 hours into her expedition, Mara's instruments detected the electromagnetic pulse, right on schedule, 14 hours after the previous one. But, being on the surface, in direct proximity to the source, revealed something the station's sensors had missed. The pulse wasn't coming from a single location but was moving. "Are you receiving this?" she asked excitedly. "The EM source is mobile, traveling at approximately 12 kilometers per hour in a circular pattern around these central formations." "Our sensors detect the pulse, but not any movement," came Dr. Quillick's translated response. The Delphinus scientist's interest, evident even through the artificial voice. "Could be an instrument error." "It's not an error," Mara insisted, tracking the signal with her handheld detector. "Whatever's generating these pulses is alive. It's moving with purpose through a defined territory." She began following the signal, moving carefully through the salt formations. The suit's cooling system worked overtime as the day progressed and temperatures rose. But Mara barely noticed, focused entirely on her pursuit. "Scientist Kowalski, you're approaching your 3-hour mark," Vexarian reminded her. "You should begin your return to the shuttle." "I've got 3 more hours," Mara replied distractedly. "And I'm close to something important. The EM signature is getting stronger." Indeed. Her detector was now registering pulses of increasing intensity. Whatever generated them was approaching her position, or she was approaching it. 4 hours into her expedition, Mara crested a rise and stopped abruptly. Before her stretched a vast depression in the salt plain, perfectly circular, like an impact crater. But instead of barren crystal, the basin was filled with what appeared to be liquid, not water, but something thick and viscous, glistening under the red star's light. "Are you seeing this?" she whispered, her helmet camera panning across the scene. "We see it," Quillick responded, all skepticism gone from the Delphinus scientist's translated voice. "Our chemical analysis suggests a highly concentrated saline solution with unknown organic compounds." "Not just a solution," Mara said, carefully approaching the edge of the basin. "Look at the movement patterns. This is a colony, a collective organism." The liquid was indeed moving, not with the random motions of wind-disturbed fluid, but in coordinated patterns, currents that formed and reformed, creating complex geometric shapes before dissolving and restructuring in new configurations. As Mara watched, the EM pulse occurred again, stronger than before. The liquid responded, its movements accelerating, patterns shifting more rapidly. "It's communicating," she realized aloud. "The electromagnetic pulses are a form of communication, coordinating the colony's activities." "That's not possible." Vexarian's voice had lost its certainty. "And yet we're all watching it happen," Mara replied, setting up specialized collection equipment at the basin's edge. "I'm going to take samples of this organism, if the station authorizes it." A long pause followed. Mara could imagine the heated discussion occurring aboard Gamma 7, the clash between 3 centuries of certainty and the evidence before their eyes. Finally, Dr. Thrum's voice came through. "Proceed with collection, but exercise extreme caution. If this is indeed a life form, we have no idea how it might react to disturbance." Mara carefully extended a collection rod over the edge of the basin, its end designed to capture samples without contamination. As the tip touched the surface of the liquid colony, the entire basin shimmered, a wave of movement spreading outward from the contact point. The EM detector in Mara's hand suddenly spiked, readings jumping off the scale. "Something's happening," she reported, taking an instinctive step back. "The colony is generating a massive electromagnetic field." "Your readings are off the charts," Quillick confirmed. "We're detecting it from orbit now." The liquid in the basin began moving more rapidly, currents swirling into a central vortex. The salt formations around the edge vibrated, crystals singing with increasing pitch as the electromagnetic field intensified. "I think it's calling something," Mira said, a note of concern entering her voice for the first time. "Or warning something." "Return to the shuttle immediately," Vexarian ordered. All scientific curiosity replaced by urgent protocol. "This is beyond the parameters of your authorized expedition." Mara hesitated, torn between scientific discovery and safety. "Just a few more minutes. I need to understand what's happening." The decision was taken from her when the ground beneath her feet began to tremble. Not a localized vibration, but a seismic event that shook the entire area. In the distance, massive salt formations began to topple, crashing to the ground in explosions of crystalline dust. "Earthquake?" she asked, struggling to maintain her balance. "Negative," came the shuttle AI's calm response. "Seismic pattern suggests large object movement beneath the surface. Recommend immediate evacuation." As if to emphasize the warning, a massive crack appeared in the salt plain, racing toward the basin like a lightning bolt striking ground. Mara turned and began running, abandoning her collection equipment as the crack widened behind her. "Get back to the shuttle now!" Vexarian's voice held genuine alarm. "We're detecting a massive object rising from beneath the surface." Mara glanced back over her shoulder and nearly stumbled at what she saw. The basin was draining, its liquid contents disappearing into the widening crack. But more shocking was what emerged in its place. A crystalline structure, enormous and gleaming, rising from beneath the planet's surface like a leviathan from the depths. "What is that?" she gasped, not slowing her pace. "Unknown classification," came Quillick's translated response. "Size estimate, 12 meters in length. Composition, appears to be organized salt crystal, similar to your earlier samples, but vastly more complex." The creature, for Mara was now certain it was a living entity, continued to rise. Its body segmented like an insect, but composed entirely of gleaming crystal. As it emerged fully into the light, it unfurled what could only be described as wings. Translucent membranes stretched between crystal spars. "It's beautiful," Mara said, despite her fear. The creature turned toward her, revealing sensory organs that pulsed with electromagnetic energy. It was tracking her, hunting her. "Run faster," Thrum advised unnecessarily. Mara pushed her suit's mobility to its limits, racing across the salt plain toward the distant shuttle. Behind her, the crystal predator fully emerged from its lair and began to move, not by walking or flying, but by generating electromagnetic fields that lifted its massive body above the surface. "It's using electromagnetic repulsion for movement," she reported between gasping breaths. "Like a maglev train. The salt must conduct the fields." "Fascinating," Quillick responded. "Also, terrifying. Your shuttle is activating defensive measures." Indeed. As Mara approached, the shuttle's external lights began flashing in patterns designed to deter predatory species across known space. The crystal entity hesitated, its sensory organs pulsing more rapidly as it assessed this new stimulus. The distraction gave Mara the time she needed to reach the shuttle. She practically dove into the airlock, slapping the emergency cycle control as she fell inside. "Close exterior doors," she commanded. "Prepare for immediate liftoff." Unable to comply, the shuttle AI responded with maddening calm. "Exterior object in proximity exceeds safety parameters for door closure." Mara turned to see the crystal predator's sensory appendage extending into the airlock, a thin, probing tendril of living crystal that quested toward her like a curious finger. For a moment, scientist and alien predator regarded each other, separated by mere centimeters. Two forms of life never meant to meet. The tendril pulsed with electromagnetic energy, scanning her, learning her. Then, with startling gentleness, it withdrew. The airlock doors closed, sealing Mara safely inside. "Predator has retreated to safe distance," the AI reported. "Exterior doors secured. Beginning decontamination cycle." Mara collapsed against the wall, heart pounding. "Did you get readings on that thing?" she asked between breaths. "Affirmative. Full sensor data recorded and transmitted to Station Gamma 7. "Good," she said, a smile spreading across her face despite the danger she'd just escaped. "Because I don't think they're going to believe this without evidence." The shuttle's return to Research Station Gamma 7 was met with an unprecedented reception. The entire scientific staff had gathered in the docking bay, their usual professional reserve replaced by barely contained excitement. As Mara emerged, still in her salt-encrusted suit with helmet removed, she found herself facing not the skepticism she'd expected, but a barrage of eager questions. The electromagnetic readings, the liquid colony, the crystal predator. Dr. Vexarian raised a six-fingered hand, silencing the chorus. Her crest displayed a complex pattern that Mara couldn't fully interpret, but which seemed to combine scientific curiosity with administrative concern. "Scientist Kowalski," Vexarian said formally, "your expedition has produced unexpected results. We've reviewed your data while you were in transit. The implications are significant." "That's one word for it," Mara replied, unable to keep a note of triumph from her voice. "I found a thriving ecosystem, not carbon-based life as we know it, but life nonetheless. Salt-based organisms with electromagnetic communication and locomotion capabilities." "If verified," Thrum cautioned, mandibles clicking rapidly, "this would represent an entirely new kingdom of life. Perhaps even a new definition of life itself. The verification is in my sample case." Mara patted the container at her side. "And in the shuttle's sensor logs. That predator wasn't a hallucination. It was 12 meters of evolutionary perfection, adapted to an environment we all declared sterile." Dr. Quillick's bioluminescence pulsed, in the pattern Mara now recognized as scientific excitement. "The question remains, how did our sensors miss this for 300 cycles?" "Because you were looking for what you expected to find," Mara explained, leading the group toward the analysis lab. "Your probes were calibrated for carbon-based biochemistry, for water-dependent life processes. These organisms use electromagnetic fields the way Earth life uses chemical energy. They're invisible to conventional bioscans." The analysis lab had been prepared for her arrival. Equipment hummed, ready to process her samples. The station's best analysts waited, eager to confirm or refute her claims. "Show us," Vexarian said simply. Mara opened her sample case, revealing collection vials containing fragments of the crystal formations, small amounts of the colony liquid, and environmental readings. She placed the first sample, a core from one of the symmetrical formations, under the station's most advanced microscope. The image that appeared on the main screen silenced even the most skeptical voices. The crystal wasn't merely inorganic matter, but a complex structure with distinct organizational patterns. Layers arranged not by geological processes, but by something that could only be described as biological growth. "The formations are their equivalent of coral reefs," Mara explained, pointing to specific structures. "Built over generations by colony organisms that use electromagnetic fields to arrange salt molecules into specific configurations." She moved to the next sample, a small amount of the liquid from the basin, now contained in a magnetically sealed vial. Under the microscope, it revealed itself not as a single organism, but as billions of microscopic crystal structures moving in coordinated patterns. "A colonial intelligence," she continued. "Individual units with minimal awareness, but collectively capable of complex behaviors. They respond to electromagnetic stimuli, from each other, from the environment, and from predators like the one I encountered." Dr. Thrum leaned forward, mandibles stilled in concentration. "And the predator itself? How does it sustain itself? What does it eat?" "Energy," Mara said simply. "The colonies absorb electromagnetic radiation from the star, store it in their crystalline structures. The predator harvests that energy, not by consuming the physical organism, but by absorbing the electromagnetic charge. It's feeding on their stored energy, not their physical form. A completely sustainable ecosystem, Quillick pulsed. Translator, struggling to convey the Delphinus scientists saw. Predator and prey in perfect balance, with the star as the ultimate energy source. Vexarian had remained silent, her crest displaying an increasingly complex pattern as she processed the implications. Finally, she spoke. If your findings are verified, and I stress if, this represents a revolutionary discovery. It would fundamentally alter our understanding of what constitutes life. The findings will be verified, Mira said confidently. Because now that you know what to look for, you'll find it everywhere on the planet. That basin wasn't unique. It was just the first we happened to find. I'd wager similar colonies exist across the entire surface, with predators maintaining the balance. The Galactic Council will require extensive documentation, Vexarian noted. Practical concerns momentarily overriding scientific wonder. A discovery of this magnitude must be thoroughly vetted before classification changes can be implemented. Of course, Mara agreed. Which is why I'm formally requesting an extension of my stay here. 30 days won't be enough to properly document what we've found. I'll need at least a full cycle, and a research team willing to recalibrate their thinking along with their sensors. Vexarian's crest rippled in what might have been the Zephyrian equivalent of a wry smile. I believe, Scientist Kowalski, that you'll find us considerably more open to unconventional methodologies than we were yesterday. The screens above them flickered suddenly, displaying alerts from the station's external sensors. Mara recognized the pattern immediately. It's the EM pulse, she said, turning to the viewport that faced the planet's surface. Right on schedule. But something was different this time. The pulse wasn't coming from the surface, but from high in the planet's thin atmosphere, visible even from orbit as a shimmer of energy against the darkness of space. It's flying, Dr. Thrum said, mandibles clicking in astonishment. The crystal predator. It's left the atmosphere. Indeed. The station's sensors now clearly tracked the massive organism as it rose from the planet. Electromagnetic fields pulsing around its crystalline body. It wasn't just capable of levitation over the salt plains. It could generate fields powerful enough for true flight, even space travel. It's following me, Mara realized, a chill running down her spine despite the wonder of the moment. It recognized me as something new, something different. Now it's curious. The creature approached the station, its crystal body gleaming in the starlight. External cameras showed it in all its alien glory. 12 meters of living crystal, pulsing with energy. Wings of electromagnetic force spread wide as it circled the human outpost. Should we be concerned? Vexarian asked, a note of alarm entering her voice for the first time. I don't think so, Mara replied, watching the creature's graceful movements. It could have attacked me on the surface if it wanted to. I think it's just investigating, learning. As if to confirm her assessment, the predator extended a sensory tendril toward the station, similar to the one that had probed the shuttle's airlock. It touched the hull, electromagnetic energy washing over the structure, in waves that the sensors registered, but which caused no damage. It's scanning us, Quillick pulsed excitedly, the same way it scanned you. The creature completed its circuit of the station, tendril withdrawing as it moved away. For a moment, it hovered motionless against the backdrop of stars, a living sculpture of crystalline perfection. Then, with a final pulse of electromagnetic energy that momentarily disrupted the station systems, it dove back toward the planet's surface, disappearing into the atmosphere in a streak of light. In the silence that followed, Dr. Vexarian's translator produced what could only be described as a thoughtful hum. I believe, she said finally, that we need to update our research parameters, effective immediately. And the consensus of planetary sterility? Mara couldn't resist asking. Consensus, Vexarian replied, her crest displaying a pattern Mara had never seen before, one that seemed to combine humility with intellectual excitement. Is subject to revision in light of new evidence. That is the foundation of good science, is it not? Mara smiled, looking back toward the viewport where the crystal predator had been. It certainly is, and I suspect we've only scratched the surface of what Kepler 442c has to teach us. Outside, the planet turned beneath them, no longer a dead world of salt and desolation, but a living laboratory of evolutionary possibility. 3 centuries of certainty had been overturned in a single day, not by sophisticated technology or massive resources, but by the simple human qualities that had driven exploration since the dawn of the species: curiosity, perseverance, and the willingness to question established wisdom. As the scientific team dispersed to begin recalibrating their equipment and rethinking their methodologies, Mara remained at the viewport, watching the salt fields below with new eyes. Somewhere down there, the crystal predator had returned to its hunting grounds. Somewhere down there, colony organisms were communicating through electromagnetic pulses, building their crystal reefs grain by grain over millennia. Life, as it always had throughout the galaxy, found a way, not through familiar chemistry or recognizable forms, but through novel adaptations to seemingly impossible conditions. The universe, Mara reflected, would never cease to surprise those willing to look beyond their expectations. And that, after all, was why she had become a xenobiologist in the first place.